keep up here? Because I don't know. All right, thank you.
Okay, with that, we will call the July 20th meeting of the Town of Somerville's Planning Commission to order. First order of business, the approval of minutes from the meeting of June 15th, 2026. Are there any additions, corrections need to be made to it? If not, we'll accept them as distributed. Our next order of business are public hearings. First, the public hearing to accept comments regarding the draft document for Somerville, Our Town, Our Future Comprehensive Plan, a 5-year review. And I understand we have a presentation on that.
Good afternoon. My name is Wyatt Stitley. I'm with the Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester Council of Governments. And we've been working with the town on doing this 5-year review of the comprehensive plan for the past year. So this is the public hearing for the final adoption process. So you can see that this is the planning commission meeting, and then we're obviously supposed to go to town council in July, August, and September as well. So oh yeah, I have the one. Give me up there you. All right, that's fine. So as I mentioned, this has been a year-long process. So we started back in, I think, August of 2025. We did a project kickoff meeting. We had 2 public open houses in the fall. We had a joint land use workshop with Planning Commission and Town Council, I believe in February. We had 1 spring public open house in April, I believe. And then now we're here for the final review process, which includes, going to Planning Commission and then the 2 council meetings. Coordination with the town staff, with Planning Commission residents and all that was crucial for this process. So kind of a quick overview. What is the purpose of a comprehensive plan? It is an advisory document, a policy document that provides a vision for the community and guides decisions and implementation tools that work to achieve this vision. Some of the implementation tools include the capital improvement plan, which was just adopted recently, the town budget, the unified development ordinance, other town ordinances, master plans, stuff like that. So following the adoption, this plan will serve as the guiding document for decision makers such as Planning Commission, Town Council, for staff, for developers, other relevant parties. The plan will essentially replace the 2020 document. That document's not, going to just be thrown out, right? It is still going to be referenced because this is just a 5-year review of that 2020 update. So some of the components of a comprehensive plan, a vision statement, goals and objectives, an inventory of existing conditions, which are typically consist of 10 elements, a needs assessment, an implementation plan, and priority investments. These are required by the state. The state puts out certain guidelines that every comprehensive plan must meet. These are some of them. The 5-year review is not a update of everything. It is just kind of reviewing some certain elements of it. So we're going to build on the vision that you already established in 2020. We're going to look at the goals, objectives, and actions outlined in that 2020 plan. We will provide updates to the existing condition elements. That includes data, mapping, any sort of inventory assessment, new parks, maybe some things that aren't there anymore. And then we'll also reassess the priorities for the next 10 to 20 years. So the goals and objectives, you can see this is a screenshot from one of the pages in the comprehensive plan. We updated all of the goals and objectives. Each element, almost every element has goals and objectives. You can see there's the housing and neighborhoods element. This was done in close coordination with town staff. Jesse and I worked pretty closely on what these goals, objectives, what these updates look like. The natural resources, parks, and open space element is the only one that has a brand new goal. Everything else is just reusing from the 2020 plan. That was added from the Parks and Recreation Department. Specifically, they were like, we really want to see this new goal added. So we obviously wanted to include that. But then also because the resiliency element was not mandatory back in the 2020 process, it wasn't mandatory yet, I should say. The resiliency goal that was in the natural resources element from 2020, we just moved it over to the resiliency element in this plan. So those are the biggest, kind of changes in the goals and objectives, besides just us giving progress, action updates, comments, and all that, which you can see there on the screen. Some of the existing condition elements, you can see that we did a community profile, which includes demographics, socioeconomic status. We looked at labor force statistics, population change. We looked at some of the housing inventory households. We did land use and development, economic development, housing and neighborhoods, transportation, mobility, community facilities and infrastructure, natural resources, parks and open space, resiliency and hazard mitigation, which is that new addition, and then cultural resources. Those are the elements that were done in the 2020 plan. We just, again, reused the names and then just added the resiliency part. And we tried to look at what was done in 2020 and just build upon it, update what we needed to. And then in some cases, like the economic development and the land use, we provided kind of an additional layer of analysis, right? We didn't want this to just be a carbon copy of the 2020 plan. We wanted to include some additional data that helped us come up with some of the land use recommendations, some of the action items, to kind of give you a justification of why we, suggested this or that. We wanted to make sure that was included in some of these elements. So the land use, we included the impervious surface coverage. So you can see the light green, the gray is what was done in 2001. I believe the dark green was impervious surface coverage in 2011. And then light green is impervious surface coverage in 2021. So you can see that kind of history of development that's happened around the Somerville area. And we pointed out in the plan 3 main development patterns that we kind of noticed given this, history of development. We said that there's the I-26 corridor, right? You have the Azalea Square, the Nexton areas around Jedburgh Road. The large scale properties, we noticed that a lot of the residential developments were taking large scale properties and converting them into neighborhoods. And then we saw a lot of infill development kind of in and around the, kind of the core urban area of Somerville. The future land use, as I mentioned, we did a future land use workshop back in the earlier this year. So updating the future land use map and descriptions was a main component of this 5-year review. We did that workshop. And these are the descriptions that we have that we kind of landed on following our land use workshop and the discussions with the town. So you'll see this map in the land use element as well. The economic development element includes the economic competitive analysis. This is something that we've been adding into a lot of the comprehensive plans for the larger areas, like Somerville and North Charleston. We've done it with Berkeley County. We did a shift share analysis, which is used to measure the competitiveness and the performance of each of the industries. So that way you can see, all right, what was, we gained 2,300 employees, kind of in the town. What is the breakdown of that change? And you can see that in the retail trade industry, you gained 910 just from your competitiveness and your performance, whereas the educational services you can see declined by 654. So this just breaks down the what the change in employment based on like national change, the industry change, and then like your regional, your local share of it. And then we also did a location quotient, which just looks at the concentration of businesses. So we looked at, if there are 50 businesses here and that represents 10% of your industry or your businesses, but then in South Carolina, it's only 2%, then you're obviously very concentrated with that industry. So we just wanted to take a look at that. And all of that will be included in the economic element of the plan. Housing trends, we looked at the construction trends, what type of units were being built. We looked at the building permits from around the planning area. You can see, and that heat map, which again is a lot of these are going to be screenshots, just to kind of throw that out there now. You can see the Nexton area received a lot of the building permits between 2020 and 2024, I believe. And the kind of the boundaries, the red, blue, and green boundaries are the growth areas that the 2020 plan identified. So we just wanted to map those and then show you identified those growth areas in 2020. We just wanted to show, all right, this has been the growth that's happened since then. Has that been in line with the growth areas? And you can see it in that Nexton area, a lot of it has been within the growth area. You can see that there were 60% were single family units and 40% were multifamily units, which is a fairly good distribution. And again, a lot of that's in the Nexton area. And then the recent market shifts that we looked at the Zillow home value index. You can see that during the peak COVID years, which is that gray bar, that housing prices increased by a lot. And then since then, they've kind of leveled off a little bit. But between January 2018 and January 2026, home prices increased by 61%, rent prices increased by 51%. And that's in the Somerville area, not the whole planning area. Commuter flow, which is in the transportation element. We looked at the destinations and origins of the commuters within the town. So in 2023, there were an estimated 22,957 people who commuted into the town of Somerville for work, but lived elsewhere. 35,862 people who resided in the planning area, yet worked elsewhere, which is the outflow. And then there were 7,357 people who kind of worked and lived in the Somerville area. And we call that the commuter flow. And you can see on the graphic there, we just mapped out the distance and direction of those commuters. So you can see of the people who are commuting into the town, where are they commuting from? And that's what the heat map is showing. And then of the people who are leaving the town, where are they going to, which is their destination, you can see the heat map there. In the natural resources element, we looked at the tree canopy coverage. We know that the town just recently did for urban forest master plan in 2023. So we wanted to make sure that the tree canopy coverage was included in this plan. We know that the town is working on a heat mapping study and tree canopy assessment. I think that's with the Shy Institute. And so we just wanted to show again, the tree canopy coverage, which is using the same database as the impervious surface coverage, comparing 2011 and 2020, just so you can see, all right, where were there loss of tree canopy? And, we did some circles showing you where we noticed that some areas, obviously the Nexton area, and then in and around downtown. For the resiliency, we added the social vulnerability index. So resiliency element is related a lot to the natural hazards that can impact the different areas of the community. So the social vulnerability index is from the CDC's website. It takes different 4 themes into consideration: socioeconomic status, household characteristics, racial and ethnic minority status, and then housing type and transportation. And then it gives a percentage of like that, vulnerability index, which you can see the downtown area, and then the area in the red are the 2 kind of highest ones. The Linkville area, which is not technically in the planning area, but is also a high area of social vulnerability. And all this is included in the resiliency element. The implementation, so we identified recent and ongoing planning efforts that the town has been working on since 2020, and maybe even a little bit before 2020. A lot of these efforts maybe were behind the scenes, right? It's not like openly to the public, even though, you know, the town's been working on it hard. Sometimes not everything gets advertised. We just want to make sure that we're identifying things that the town's been working on to acknowledge that they have been doing great work. So most of the 2020 priorities, the priority investments are still active. That's why I mentioned earlier that even though this is an update to the 2020 plan, things are still relevant, and that priority investments, which identifies funding sources and you know, what the town needs to work on in the future, those are still very much relevant. So we didn't want to just, you know, copy and paste it. We wanted to just say, hey, we acknowledge this is still relevant, and that it needs to continue. You know, the funding sources are still there. The work still needs to be done. The action matrix is now broken down into two sections: the action recommendations and then the strategy recommendations. Jesse and I, or the town staff, we went through the action matrix and we identified, all right, these are strategies, these are actions, right? Some strategies are more, they're not as like, all right, we can just check the box, this is done, right? A strategy is more like, all right, what is it continuously gets progress, it's continuously, it's ongoing, right? Just because you have a strategy, it's not necessarily like, all right, we're going to check a box off. Whereas an action, that's something where like, all right, we can accomplish this. The action is build a park. All right, we build a park. Let's check that that recommendation off. A strategy is like improve facilities, right? That's the strategy, and that's an ongoing type of recommendation. So we wanted to delineate that between the actions where you can check the boxes off and the strategies. A lot of them are still rolled over from the 2020 plan. We did provide some updates to them. If you don't mind, Jess, there we go. We did provide some updates to them, which I'll get in the next slide. So the recent and ongoing planning efforts, we wanted to acknowledge the town has been awarded over $16 million in grants between its numerous departments. Here's a list of the projects that we've identified in the plan. So the Berlin G. Myers extension, which is obviously now complete. The Oak Brook redevelopment plan, which is the YMCA sports complex is part of that. The urban forestry master plan, which I mentioned, the Main Street resiliency project, which is ongoing. And then there's numerous other things like the Safe Streets for All safety action plan, and then the US 17 corridor congestion management plan. There's just still ongoing projects. And so the action matrix, we added in the 5-year review comments. That's something that we worked very closely with the town staff on providing those updates. You can see that we color coded them. The strategy recommendations are in that red, and then the action recommendations are in the blue. And you can see that the time frame, you see ongoing, which is O, short term S, medium term M, long term L. And then you can see on the strategy one, it is completed / ongoing, right? Again, I mentioned that the strategies are not always, you can't just complete them. You know, there's always more that you can do. That's kind of what the point of the strategy is. So you can see in some of those timeframes, you will see completed / ongoing, because it was generally completed, but it's obviously we still need to maintain, you know, we still need to continue to implement that strategy. So. And that is a very, very quick, brief overview of the plan. I believe it's about 160 pages. So I know I obviously couldn't cover everything, but I want to ensure you that we did cover a good bit in the plan. And if there's any specific elements that you have questions on, just let me know, and I can say yes, we've addressed them, or you know, oh, we've included it here. But yeah, that's the plan. So any questions?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry. With the COG, I saw the Low Country Rapid Transit is not going to make it up this way. And one of the reasons was we didn't have the ridership numbers. So there was a micro transit possibility. Did y'all look into that at all?
That the LCRT is kind of its own, you know, it's a very much evolving project. I know that there's been a lot of talk about it in the news recently. We did not get in too much in the specifics with it here, just because it's like the microtransit. I'm not sure of the status on that. The last I've heard is the fairgrounds is like the end game, but we did include strategy recommendations in saying, all right, we need to work with Tri-County Link in providing that that link to the fairgrounds to what will be the park and ride. That's kind of the recommendation that we've put forth. Is that's something that it's not kind of contingent on the LCRT. We can say, all right, Tri-County Link, we know that this is going to happen. Let's go ahead and proactively plan for a route to connecting downtown or Nexton to the fairgrounds. That's something that we did include because we did realize that that was something that needed to be updated because some of those actions were no longer applicable.
Mhm.
So that's what we kind of replaced it with.
Okay. I thought that the COG had a grant for a micro transit study in the town.
Mhm.
That was just something that, was a need at some point that to get those ridership numbers to then be eligible for
Yeah.
LCRT.
I'm not sure of what the status of that is. I can absolutely check. When we had our discussion, at the COG, that wasn't something that was brought up. They were more focused on the Tri-County Link study that we just completed.
Mhm.
That was kind of the focus when we were talking about the transit side of things. We realized that the LCRT wasn't, that extension was not happening. They were like, all right, the Tri-County Link study, it's like it was ongoing this past year. It now just recently closed out. We're in the works of publishing it. I think it will be published probably definitely by the end of the year. I forget exactly what the time frame is, but they were mostly focused on that study rather than like that micro transit zone. But I can absolutely look into that and give you an update.
Okay. And I need to reach out to my council person.
Anything else?
Else? And thank you. And I take it nobody signed up to,
I do not have anybody signed up for that public hearing.
all right, then we'll close this public hearing and move to the next. We have a request to rezone TMS number 13707160009 located at 115 South Magnolia Street, totaling approximately 0.67 acres, owned by Magnolia Bed and Breakfast LLC from GR2 General Residential, 2 units per acre, to NMX Neighborhood Mixed Use. It's in Council District 2.
The applicant was not able to be present, but I do have a letter that they sent that I will read into the record and then open it up to the rest of the public hearing. Dear Planning Commission members, thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend Monday night's meeting, but I wanted to share my thoughts regarding my rezoning request. Earlier this year, I applied to rezone my property at 115 South Magnolia to DMX so I could continue operating Magnolia Inn. Just 2 years ago, the town of Somerville had at least 5 operating inns. Today, there are none because the current regulations have made it nearly impossible for them to continue operating. After my request was denied, I met with town staff, members of town council, and the mayor to discuss what options were available if I decided to take the property off the market. I was told my options under the current zoning were to operate the property as a state licensed group home or convert it into a long-term residential rental. Over the past several months, I have spent hours researching both options and meeting with potential tenants. Then last month, 103 South Magnolia Street, owned by David and Kimberly Garber, with David Garber serving as a Dorchester County employee and currently under contract to Sharpie and Hames Law, was approved for NMX zoning. After that approval, I was encouraged to submit an application for NMX as well. I am simply asking to be treated consistently with the surrounding properties and with the town's recent zoning decisions. My property is surrounded by properties that are already zoned NMX. Across South Magnolia Street are Shelburne Law, Amanda Leviner Law, and Magnolia Management Company. 2 properties down will soon be the office of Sharpie and Holmes Law Firm. Behind my property at 301 East Richardson Avenue is the Pink Dolphin Inn, currently for sale, and at 303 East Richardson Avenue is the Dorchester Children's Advocacy Center. With the recent rezoning of 103 South Magnolia Street, 3 of the 4 sides of my property are now adjacent to NMX zoning. Because of this, I do not believe this request could reasonably be considered spot zoning. Instead, it simply extends the zoning pattern that already exists in this area. The businesses surrounding my property generate very little traffic, and rezoning my property to NMX would be consistent with the existing character and use of Magnolia Street. I appreciate your time and respectfully ask for your support of my rezoning request. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. Sincerely, Megan Duncan. All right. I have Karen Healy.
Thank you. My name is Karen Healy. I live nearby 115 South Magnolia. I'm totally floored by the comprehensive plan. Wow. I really like digging into all that data The impervious surface, tree canopy, those are areas I really zeroed in on. And I was surprised the lack of change in downtown Somerville in those two categories. What is interesting is the commuter flow information. And I think it would be a wonderful goal for everyone to increase the number of people who live here and work here. It would help a lot of the traffic issues, mass transportation and the like. And included in there is the map that you saw. Here's a itty bitty version of it. And interestingly, the property in question, 115 South Magnolia, there is no change to the map. It's still residential. There's no future plans to change it. I know you know the comprehensive plan and future use map, and think of it when reviewing multiple requests for this property and two others on South Magnolia. These are all business commercial ventures that do not belong in a residential area when there are viable properties in properly zoned areas. There are now 4 LLCs on this street and the pressure is on. Caroline's was purchased by a New York LLC and it appears the property is not operating. I went to the website today and there's no longer a website. It looks like no one's there. They're mowing the grass, but it looks like no one's there. The other 3, 103, the future law firm, the Pie property, and 115 South Magnolia. These were all residential homes that have been removed from the inventory. Families have 3 less options to buy in the historic district. Those homes are no longer residential. The department report is very clear and concise. Please deny again this request for rezoning, whether it's neighborhood mixed use, downtown mixed use. It is not residential. Thank you.
Jim Healy.
Good afternoon. You get a double dose today. Little bit of confusion coming back again and again and again for 115. We were at the town council meeting, I think just a couple months ago, where it was voted down for DMX. The town council tried an amendment to go NMX. It was voted down. And yet here we are again, starting a whole process over. And it's coincidental to, again, the comprehensive plan future use. If you make this property neighborhood mixed use, what happens when the owner decides, I can't make enough money running this business? What do we get next? It's already rezoned to MX. Is it a restaurant, a bar, a venue? This is changing the future use beyond what that gentleman here told us about our comprehensive plan. So while the owner may say, I want to have a bed and breakfast, and we should just strike that term out of everything because it's not a bed and breakfast. It's a short-term rental franchise. He doesn't live in it. He lives somewhere else. He tried to make it a bed and breakfast, but never lived in it. Add way too many units. We went through all that for a couple of years. And now we're back at this starting again. Where does it stop? When does it stop and where does it stop? Like my wife said, this part of the historic district just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. You know, now we're fighting a OED, outside entertainment district. So we can have people drinking coming down to the corner of Magnolia and Richardson. They can't turn left though, because it's not allowed, but they can go down the other way. It just keeps pushing down further. And when we make these big steps of rezoning to allow someone to have a short-term rental, we just heard, do we really need another one in town? And then he sells it. And now we're looking at something no one ever intended to be there. That's the thing we're missing. This is big time future decisions down the road. So I just ask you to keep all that in mind as you make your decision. Again, thank you all.
Peter Gorman.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. I I want to add my compliments to the 5-year plan. I think it's excellent. I haven't read the whole thing, but from what I've read, I like a lot of what I'm seeing that wasn't in the original 10-year plan. I did sign up to speak about both the 5-year plan and the rezoning issue, but I can make my comments about the 5-year plan in the context of the East Historic District neighborhoods where we are so concerned. There's a couple of sentences in the plan regarding the goal that I will read it here. It says, while downtown will grow more dense over time, the historic character of the district and the surrounding neighborhoods will be maintained. That's a good thing. I met with the chamber leadership last fall, and there was no reference at all to historic preservation in this. Now it is in here, and I like to see that. In terms of the two new specific zoning categories, the generic zoning categories, neighborhood residential is one and neighborhood mixed use is another. And both of those we're looking at influencing perhaps the east side of the historic district with the overlay district workshop that you're going to have, as well as the current 2 rezonings over on South Magnolia. And neighborhood residential, the sentence included that I like very much says, the overall character of these neighborhoods are similar and should be maintained. Infill development that is compatible with the character, scale, and density of the surrounding neighborhood should be encouraged in these areas. Good point. Neighborhood residential. On the neighborhood mixed use, they taught typical commercial land uses within these areas include retail, grocery stores, banks, restaurants, medical professional offices, salons, barbers, and other service-based businesses. That's what we're looking at with this overlay plan, and we don't like it. So I'm hoping that in the future, when you're asked to consider rezoning requests, that you keep this in mind in the 5-year plan. My specific comments about 115 South Magnolia, according to our legal land use counsel, Andrew Gowder, who also happens to be the chairman of the Preservation Society of Charleston, this rezoning violates the state comprehensive plan requirements. Rezoning to NMX and violates the current land use map showing the entire block as GR2 zoning. The recent council approval of rezoning on 103 South Magnolia from GR2 to NMX violates this plan and is illegal spot zoning. The zoning application, the second point, it doesn't just justify the change. You heard the comments from the owner. He doesn't say why he needs to make this rezoning occur, which is a consideration for rezoning. And finally, the comprehensive plan shows that the entire block as neighborhood residential and not mixed use. And we hope that you keep it that way. We ask that you deny this rezoning. Thank you.
I do not have anyone else signed up for public comment.
Okay. And we'll close that public hearing and move to new business. Do we have any street names?
I do not have any street names.
Well, okay. Next order of new business is the consideration of the resolution to recommend the adoption of Somerville, Our Town, Our Future Comprehensive Plan 5-year review. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll second.
All right. Hearing no move for discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Like sign. The ayes have it. Next order of business, request to rezone TMS number 13707160009, located at 115 South Magnolia Street, totaling approximately 0.67 acres, owned by Magnolia Bed and Breakfast LLC, from GR2 General Residential 2 units per acre to NMX Neighborhood Mixed Use Council District 2. Do I have a motion?
I apologize. I forgot to read 2 letters into the record for public hearing. Can I do those now real quick before you take your vote? I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yes.
Totally slipped my mind. My bad. The first is from Laura Crosby. Thank you for accepting my letter in protest of rezoning of 115 South Magnolia from GR2 zoning to NMX. I live next door to 115. Thank you also, all planning commission members, for consistently making thoughtful and wise decisions when rezoning issues come before you. Regarding 115 South Magnolia, the Municipal Association of South Carolina and state law require zoning ordinances to follow the comprehensive plan. Under the South Carolina Comprehensive Planning Act, South Carolina Code Title VI, Chapter 29, all land use regulations, including zoning codes and the official map, must be adopted and maintained in accordance with municipality's comprehensive plan. If a rezoning or development decision is inconsistent with the future land use map, South Carolina courts have repeatedly held that the decision is legally vulnerable and can be invalidated. Local governments use these long-range plans to ensure that development aligns with established goals for housing, economic development, infrastructure, and natural resources. Rezoning of 115 South Magnolia violates the comprehensive plan and future land use map, as did the rezoning of 103 South Magnolia, located 2 doors down. While the application of the petitioner states closed bed and breakfast and looking to rezone to NMX under the present zoning, GR2, Magnolia B&B can legally operate with a conditional use permit. On April 8, 2026, the town's attorney, Mr. G.W. Parker, conceded to my attorney, Mr. Andy Gowder, that the amendment to rezone 115 was not in concert with the comprehensive plan. Nothing has changed in 3.5 months. For the third time since 2024, I oppose rezoning of 115 South Magnolia. Thank you, Laura Crosby, 207 East Richardson Avenue. To the planning commission members, thank you for the work you do. The property at 115 South Magnolia has come before you several times in the past 2 years. On each occasion, you have denied the owner's request. I ask that you again deny the request before you for rezoning from GR2 to NMX. The property shares borders with 5 other residential properties. Changes to 115 zoning will impact these other properties, perhaps leading to rezoning requests from them as well. Granting this request would not follow the town of Somerville's comprehensive plan and future land use map and the underlying state codes prohibiting such an action. While town council members have viewed previous requests through the lens of the property continuing as a short-term rental or bed and breakfast, you know that this change in zoning would allow a myriad of other uses, some more egregious than others. Those uses, even in service industry uses, are not in accordance with the character of this block, which is designated for single-family dwellings, or at least was until council disregarded your recommendation and approved rezoning of 103 South Magnolia. In closing, I ask that you deny this rezoning request. Bertie Crosby, 207 East Richardson Avenue.
Okay, are there any more? Right, then we're back to, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
Have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion to second. Any discussion?
I have a question. I thought that if you were denied a rezoning, you had to wait a year before you resubmitted for the same zoning.
So initially I did deny the application due to that requirement. However, we contacted the Municipal Association's legal counsel to advise us, as the initial application that was denied was for DMX, not NMX. And they said it should only be based on the official application. So because this was different, which our ordinance does state if it is a different request, not exactly the same, then we do have to allow it to move forward.
There's a little loophole right there whenever they amended. I gotcha. Okay. That was my only.
Anything else? Okay, I have a motion to deny. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. And that being the last thing on our agenda, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A motion second, all in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.